Chapter 10, Book 1 of Rookwood. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This reading by Paul Curran. Rookwood by William Harrison Ainsworth. Book 1, Chapter 10, Ranulph Rookwood. Fur. Yes, Francisco, he hath left his curse upon me. Fran. How? Fur. His curse, I dost comprehend what that word carries, shot from a father's angry breath. Unless I tear poor Felisada from my heart, he hath pronounced me heir to all his curses. Shirley, The Brothers. There is nothing, I trust, my dear young friend and quondam pupil, said Dr. Small, as the door was closed, that weighs upon your mind beyond the sorrow naturally incident to an affliction severe as the present. Forgive my apprehensions if I am wrong. You know the affectionate interest I have felt ever for you, an interest which, I assure you, is nowise diminished, and which I will excuse my urging you to unburden your mind to me, assuring yourself that whatever may be your disclosure, you will have my sincere sympathy and commiseration. I may be better to advise with you, should counsel be necessary, than others, from my knowledge of your character and temperament. I would not anticipate evil, and am, perhaps, unnecessarily apprehensive. But I own I am startled at the incoherence of your expressions, coupled with your sudden and almost mysterious appearance at this distressing juncture. Answer me. Has your return been the result of mere accident? Is it to be considered one of those singular circumstances which almost look like fate, and baffle our comprehension? Or were you nearer home than we expected, and received the news of your father's demise through some channel unknown to us? Satisfy my curiosity, I beg of you, upon this point. Your curiosity, my dear sir, replied Ranulph, gravely and sadly, will not be decreased when I tell you that my return has neither been the work of chance, for I came fully anticipating the dread event which I find realized, nor has it been occasioned by any intelligence derived from yourself or others. It was only, indeed, upon my arrival here that I received full confirmation of my apprehensions. I had another, a more terrible summons to return. What summons? You perplex me, exclaimed Small, gazing with some misgivings into the face of his young friend. I am myself perplexed, sorely perplexed, returned Ranulph. I have much to relate, but I pray you bear with me to the end. I have that on my mind which, like guilt, must be revealed. Speak, then, fearlessly to me, said Small, affectionately pressing Ranulph's hand, and assure yourself beforehand of my sympathy. It will be necessary, said Ranulph, to preface my narrative by some slight allusion to certain painful events. And yet, I know not why I should call them painful, excepting in their consequences, which influenced my conduct in my final interview between my father and myself. An interview which occasioned my departure for the continent, and which was of a character so dreadful that I would not even revert to it, were it not a necessary preliminary to the circumstance I am about to detail. When I left Oxford, I passed a few weeks alone in London. A college friend, whom I accidentally met, introduced me, during a promenade in St. James's Park, to some acquaintances of his own, who were taking an airing in the Mall at the same time, a family whose name was Mowbray, consisting of a widow lady, her son, and daughter. This introduction was made in compliance with my own request. I had been struck by the singular beauty of the younger lady, whose countenance had a peculiar and inexpressible charm to me, from its marked resemblance to the portrait of the Lady Eleanor Rookwood, whose charms and unhappy fate I have so often dwelt upon and deplored. The picture is there, continued Ranulph, pointing to it. Look at it, and you have the fair creature I speak of before you. The colour of the hair, the tenderness of the eyes. No, the expression is not so sad, except when But no matter, I recognised her features at once. It struck me that upon the mention of my name the party betrayed some surprise, especially the elder lady. For my own part, I was so attracted by the beauty of the daughter, the effect of which upon me seemed rather the fulfilment of a predestined event, originating in the strange fascination which the family portrait had wrought in my heart, that the operation of what is called love at first sight, that I was insensible to the agitation of the mother. In vain I endeavoured to rally myself. My efforts at conversation were fruitless. I could not talk. All I could do was silently to yield to the soft witchery of those tender eyes, my admiration increasing each instant that I gazed upon them. I accompanied them home. Attracted as by some irresistible spell, I could not tear myself away, so that, although I fancied I could perceive symptoms of displeasure in the looks of both the mother and the son, yet, regardless of consequences, I ventured uninvited to enter the house. In order to shake off the restraint which I felt my society imposed, I found it absolutely necessary to divest myself of bashfulness, and to exert such conversational powers I possessed. I succeeded so well that the discourse soon became lively and animated, and what chiefly delighted me was, that she, for whose sake I had committed my present rudeness, became radiant with smiles. I had been all eagerness to seek for some explanation of the resemblance to which I had just alluded, and the fitting moment had, I conceived, arrived. I called attention to a peculiar expression in the features of Miss Mowbray, and then instanced the likeness that subsisted between her and my ancestress. It is the more singular, I said, turning to the mother, because there could have been no affinity, that I am aware of, between them, and yet the likeness is really surprising. It is not so singular as you imagine, answered Mrs. Mowbray. There is a close affinity. That Lady Rookwood was my mother. Eleanor Mowbray does resemble her ill-fated ancestress. Words cannot paint my astonishment. I gazed at Mrs. Mowbray, considering whether I had not misconstrued her speech, whether I had not so shaped the sounds as to suit my own quick and passionate conceptions. But no, I read in her calm, collected countenance, in the downcast glance and sudden sadness of Eleanor, as well as in the changed and haughtily demeanor of the brother, that I had heard her rightly. Eleanor Mowbray was my cousin, the descendant of that hapless creature whose image I had almost worshipped. Recovering from my surprise, I addressed Mrs. Mowbray, endeavoring to excuse my ignorance of our relationship, on the plea that I had not been given to understand that such had been the name of the gentleman she had espoused. Nor was it, answered she, the name he bore at Rookwood. Circumstances forbade it then. From the hour I quitted that house until this moment, excepting one interview with Sir Reginald Rookwood, I have seen none of my family, have held no communication with them. My brothers have been strangers to me. The very name of Rookwood has been unheard, unknown, nor would you have been admitted here, had not accident occasioned it. I ventured now to interrupt her, and to express a hope that she would suffer an acquaintance to be kept up, which had so fortunately commenced, and which might most probably bring about an entire reconciliation between the families. I was so earnest in my expostulations, my whole soul being in them, that she inclined a more friendly ear to me. Eleanor, too, smiled encouragement. Love lent me eloquence, and at length, as a token of my success, and her own relenting, Mrs. Mowbray held forth her hand. I clasped it eagerly. It was the happiest moment of my life. I will not trouble you with any lengthened description of Eleanor Mowbray. I hope at some period or other you may still be enabled to see her and judge for yourself. For though adverse circumstances have hitherto conspired to separate us, the time for a renewal of our acquaintance is approaching, I trust, for I am not yet altogether without hope. But this much I may be allowed to say, that her rare endowments of person were only equalled by the graces of her mind. Educated abroad,